and we're going to talk about brand today. So just a quick little something about me. I'm Tobias Lundqvist. I'm the business director at Mo Studios. And we're a design company in Stockholm that does product design, brand design, and all kinds of brand-related stuff. Used to be a creative before, then moved over to the dark business side after that. But hopefully I can give you both those perspectives as well. And just some quick information about us. So we see ourselves as having a holistic approach to a brand. And what we mean by that, we sort of have 3 steps that we stand on. So what we call business design, brand design, and product design. So business design, you come into everything from the brand strategy, the product strategy, also the growth and that kind part of the business. When we go into brand, we do everything from naming companies to doing their visual ID. And the thing that sets a little bit apart is that we also have really good product people at the agency. So you're going to see some examples of that, how that really can strengthen the way you work. And of course, the slide you need to have with all the cool brands that you have worked with to see that we actually can do something. We work with everything from rather small new startups like Mendy or Steven, up to really big scale-ups like Lifesum or Klarna, and also some more traditional companies like Electrolux, for instance, where we do a lot of more intrapreneurial projects on them. So today we're going to talk about how to create a great brand. And now I can't really get the interaction with the viewers at home, but I would love just to hear a little bit about you guys that are here in the room. What kind of stuff you're working on and how come you're here. So anyone feeling brave enough to start and explain? And I can repeat if needed for the webcast. I already see that you would be super happy to start. Yes.
Okay, my name is Julia. I work as the creative director of a company called Molly Rental. We do 3D scanning services for retail. And I've been sort of working on shaping the brand from almost from scratch. I guess I'm here today to get some input and inspiration from other people that have done similar things, I guess.
All right. Awesome. Do I need to repeat for the webcast or are we fine with the sound? Yeah, so creative director for a product company shaping the brand from start. Anyone else that has another perspective on why they're here? Go ahead.
Yeah, I come from retail. I've been a store manager, merchandiser. So I started going to school. I started marketing. And I worked more. So then I started to become a director. That was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got into Hyperider. But then I had to stop. So I have like a couple of months to think what can I do.
All right. So former Hyper Island student figuring out what to do and being involved in lots of different places in the marketing world, I guess, would be a good summary. Too bad. I thought you were working for NASA when I saw your sweatshirt, but too bad. All right, third last one. Anyone that has another perspective on why they're here? Just for me to, yeah.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. So I have a background in business and tech. So I just started a service to help women after giving birth.
All right.
Body and mind. So we're kind of creating that from scratch. So I'm very excited to know how to do that.
All right. You have to tell me later. My brother is having his first child in December, so I need to give his girlfriend the tip of that startup. Repeating for the webcast, working for a startup focusing on women after they've given birth, and probably in the midst of creating a brand right now. But great. So I think those 3 perspectives are pretty good. encapsulates a lot of what we're going to talk about. The first thing, just to get some kind of definition, and you're also going to get the fastest history lesson of a brand ever on sort of 2-3 slides. So a brand, the first misconception that many people have is that brand equals a logo, and maybe brand equals logo and some colors, but of course, a brand is much more than that. So just some of the stuff that we have, logo, it could be sounds, it could be colors, but also like your hiring process becomes part of your brand, or your values, or tastes, or scents in the store, if you're working in retail. And I was searching for a definition when I created this talk, and found from the Business Dictionary. So they have unique design, symbol, words, or a combination of these, blah, 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 blah. I think this definition sucks. I'm not smarter after I've read it. I'm actually dumber after I've read it. But there is one guy that's really smart, Martin Neumeier, and he has a quote that I think is great for what a brand is. So brand is a person's gut feeling about a product, service, or organization. And that I can get. Like, okay, so we need to create this kind of gut feeling. We need to plant that seed into people's minds. And how do we do that? If we look back at the origin of brand, it comes from brandur, or Old Norse word that means to put your mark on something. And it started out more or less that people started to put their mark on cattle to make sure that they didn't run away to the neighbor's house or anything like that. But what they started realizing was that one of these farmers had much better meat than all the other farmers. So when you could see that the cattle has his mark on it, you actually expected better meat. And that's sort of where branding started to build a little bit. And this guy, James Walter Thompson, was a newspaper guy. He owned several newspapers, and he was the first one to realize that he could put ads in newspapers. So that's where it started to get more formalized. And first, it started out as more ads for buy our product because it's the best one or it's the cheapest one. But more and more, it started moving into more intangible values. So a lot of these brands, which are some of the first ones ever, don't really talk necessarily about it being the best tasting or the most healthy one, but it started to build some intangible values around that. And this is the end of the history lesson here. We're going to move into the more contemporary stuff, because how do you build this trust that we start feeling? How can you get the same mark on your cattle, which then your mark on your startup by doing this? So just looking at some contemporary examples for it. If we look at Ray-Ban, I buy Ray-Bans because I trust that they're going to make me cool. Not too cool or weird, so because I'm not comfortable enough to be that, but just cool enough for me to be comfortable. Or if I go to Body Shop and buy products there, I can trust them that, okay, it's going to be products that are good for the planet, it hasn't been animal tested, but also that people are going to look at me when I walk around with the bags from Body Shop and think that, he's a pretty nice guy because he buys his stuff at Body Shop. H&M can rely on them that they're going to have cheap clothes in all the sizes, and it's going to look totally fine, good clothes, not going to be too weird again. No, not comfortable and cool enough to be that. Ryanair, I can go directly there and buy the cheapest flying ticket. Don't need to go to any price comparison sites because I trust them to always deliver that. Or the last example, Old Spice, that has the slogan, smell like a man, man. which means that at least if I buy this, I can be comfortable enough that I don't go around smell like a woman or anything like that. If you remember the old Super Bowl ad, that was the whole plot for it. Look at you, man. Now back to me. Now look at you, man. Now back to me. Doesn't look like me, but if you stopped using lady-scented body wash, it could at least smell like me. So your brand defines your company, your product, and also your target group. And we're going to look at a few different niches about how companies go about building these brands. And the first category we're going to go into is ride-hailing. So all of these taxi apps that have started. And this seems like a very hard task if you get into it as a creative director. Like, it's a very generic product. The only thing you do is you open the app, click, and then a taxi comes with a different logo. So how do you actually build something intangible around that? How do you build a story around that? Well, actually, if we look at them, they are very different. So Uber, for instance, and I'm going to use the claims that they had at the beginning. They have changed several times over the year, but this is how they started to define themselves. Everyone's private driver. And I think this is really good because it's very clear what the service is going to be about, what kind of people want to have a private driver. It's probably someone like this. So these are actual ads that we have from Uber. So arrive in style. And you can really see what kind of people they think are going to buy this. They're maybe in the finance world or in the startup world. They want to have this cool air from their friends. They even have fish in style as well as logos, which was a collaboration with Fish Me. And also, when you look at the founder, Travis Kalanick, he is that kind of guy that's going there, which did cause a lot of problems in the end for him, and he actually got ousted from Uber in the end. But he really lived this brand of wanting to have that private driver experience. If we look at another ride-hailing company, Lyft, your friend with a car, very, very different from what Uber has tried to create. And this is a quote I pulled out from their website. So we imagine a world where cities feel small again, where transportation and tech brings people together instead of apart. We see the future as community-driven, and it starts with you. So again, very different. And if you look at these, the cars they have as well, they have these car stashes that they put on them. So as a driver, you actually get one of these sent home to you, and they encourage you to put that on the car to have some kind of more nice community-driven feeling to it. A third one, BlaBlaCar. Have you heard of BlaBlaCar? You have heard of it. So BlaBlaCar, they don't exist here in Sweden, but I think in France, for instance, they're really big. So BlaBlaCar, connecting drivers with people traveling the same way. And so they're much more about the matchmaking part of it. I don't know, the Swedes might remember Galenskaparna with the song about driving in the car and they don't want a stranger beside them. So this is one of the most prominent features of the app. That when you sign up, you can choose if you're blah, if you're blah blah, or if you're blah blah blah. So are you not very chatty? You just want to carpool and get to your destination? Or do you enjoy a natter? Or won't you simply shut up? Are you the kind of person that just talks and loves to meet people? Like, I would say my mom, me, my dad, sort of. We would have 3 completely different experiences using this app. And everything from like the logo, the metaphor they have there with the quotation marks signalizes this kind of feeling. And the early designs in the app looked very like childish, silly, but also very friendly and much more inviting than, let's say, what Uber had back in the days. I can just pause here. Any questions or thoughts at this point? So do you follow me with how you actually can build different stories around what seems to be a generic product? Awesome. So going in for some tools on how you can create a brand. So I'm going to show you some of these tools that we use when we have workshops, when we have meetings with our clients. And I can make all of these slides available for you, so you don't have to sit and snap photos of them or anything like that. So one very common thing to use is a positioning map. And this way you have sort of a matrix. So you could have different words here on the axles, but let's say axis, mature and youthful could be two different ends of that spectrum, or price-worthy and luxurious, for instance. And then you sort of place out all of your different competitors that you have there, and you try to identify, do we have an area where we can stand out? So let's take an example here. So if we're going to sell bags, handbags, for instance. So mature and luxurious around here, maybe like Prada would be, or Dolce & Gabbana. Maybe we have price-worthy, youthful H&M down here. And when we start plotting out all of the competitors, maybe we find out that there isn't really a youthful, super luxurious handbag brand, for instance. So maybe that is the direction we're going to go in. Also, before I leave this slide, one thing that we see companies make mistakes again and again is that they put a very positive word on one end and a not so positive word on the other one. And it gets very easy for you to say that, of course, I want to be in this category. So it could be like high quality and low quality. And of course, nobody wants to produce low quality stuff. So that's why you should go with words that both can be, where companies actually could say that we are going to be the most price-worthy brand, and not we're going to be the low-quality brand, for instance. So another version of this, this is something that we use a whole lot when trying to find sort of the essence and the personality behind the brand. So we have the brand spectrum, and here it works sort of the same way, but we have noticed that it gets a little bit easier, actually, when you don't have that positioning map. And we also have some examples to work with. And the most important thing for us here is not to get the exact right position for each of the companies, but to hear their thoughts around how are they thinking when they are building this brand. So for instance, a lot of companies usually put themselves very far to the right there on the rebel side. But when we actually start to talk about them, so what does that encompass? Would you sell a flamethrower as merch, like Elon Musk did? So, no, we wouldn't really do that. So would you do this or would you do this? And then suddenly they're like, yeah, well, maybe we're more like here. And you can sort of bring that back to it. Innovative is always something also that I've never been in a brand workshop where the company hasn't said that one of our most important values is that we're very innovative. And when everyone says it, it doesn't really mean anything. So this is also somewhere where you really need to be careful about not picking up that kind of stuff too much. But I'll show you another workshop method that I can use to eliminate those. Yes?
How many companies do you think work with this strategy? You usually have an idea that you start and it's a great idea and then you stop. How many companies do you think
That actually starts doing this.
where you should go?
So the question for the webcast was how many companies actually start by doing this. I think a lot of them don't start doing this. So Airbnb, for instance, is a great example of that. They started out with just renting out one air mattress on their floor in their own apartment. And that was the idea, and then they realized, we have something here. They just put Air Bed and Breakfast as a name for it. They more or less didn't have any colors. But then very fast, when they started to raise money, they got feedback from investors that, okay, we like your idea, but you need to be about something more like this. Like, you need to have some kind of vision of how are you going to change the world, because otherwise you're going to be a very small business. But if you have a vision for how you change the world, then you can get a lot more investors, a lot more money in. So pretty quickly they started to actually working with I don't know if they used exactly this one, but starting to work and building that bigger vision and story around it. And I think you can see that you can actually Google the old pitch decks, for instance, for Uber or Airbnb. They are all leaked online. And you can see where the story started to take shape over time. So I guess the short version of the answer would be that a whole lot don't start with it, but they pretty soon actually figure out that they need to get this, because otherwise they have a hard time getting investments for the companies. So another version that you can use is creating a persona. If you remember the I'm a Mac, I'm a PC ads, this is basically what they have done here. They have taken this exercise and just put it into a film script. So started to think like, okay, if a Mac was a person, what kind of clothes would he have? How would he talk? What would he be interested in? And trying to build a persona around that. So you have the cool, casual Mac guy, youthful, and then you have the business, corporate, PC person that nobody wants to be. Of course, another great thing to do is create mood boards. So you start not designing yourself, but actually collecting inspirations from all over the web or anywhere you can find it, just to try to narrow down. So where are we visually with this? Two more of these slides I'm gonna share. Then we're gonna go into some more tangible examples. So this one, trait prioritization. I love this way of working if you have a client that have a lot of stakeholders, for instance. So a lot of people are sitting and saying maybe a little bit different things, or if you get into that kind of trap where people are just saying stuff like, we are very innovative, or we put the customer first. Like, okay, so what company would say, we put the customer second, actually, or we put them third? If it is something that nobody would disagree with, then it's not really part of your brand. Like, you have to actually remove all that kind of clutter. And one way to do this, and I'm going to reveal this, so if you ever work with a company, this is not going to work for you, but So you put up post-it notes and you write down everything, every trait that people in the room think about the brand we're creating. So for instance, innovative could be on one part, or could be super cheap, for instance, or super price-worthy, or whatever. And then you have maybe 50 different post-it notes with different traits up here. And you start placing them out. So some go in here in the important part. And the reason why we name this important is a little bit to trick the members of the group. Because if we would have said, ignore here, or something like that, then people would be very sad if they got their post-it note with innovative down there. So we always talk about it like, okay, so down here we have everything that is important, but more maybe like stuff that of course should be there, but maybe doesn't make us unique in any way. Then we have very important. This is maybe what we include in headlines along the web or anything like that. But then we have the smallest one, which should be like 2 or 3 post-it notes, post-it notes at most. And those are the unique traits. So by doing this, you can help the client or help your teammates to really start taking away stuff. And because we've taken away, but we put it in very important, they still feel good about themselves, they got their voice heard, but it helps them to laser focus down on, so what are the 2-3 traits that are the most important? And then the last one I'm going to show you, and this one you might have seen, this became super popular around the web, Simon Sinek's What, How, Why, where the way he presents it is that most companies can describe what they do. And the better ones could also say how they do it. But very few companies can describe why we're doing this. So if we take Airbnb, what do we do? Well, we have a marketplace for where people can rent out their place or rent a place instead of going to a hotel. So that's what we help people with. How do we do it? We have this website that we do it, but we also engage the community. We have photographers that come out and take photos, so you actually get the super nice experience for it. But then why does Airbnb do this? Anyone that has a feeling for or actually know, what is Airbnb's claim? How are they trying to change the world? Home away from home, yes, close, but it's in that area. Connecting people, also some kind of part of that area, but not exactly. Actually, their claim is belong anywhere. So what they want you to do is when you go to a new place, you're not a tourist there. You're not checking into a hotel, but you actually belong there, or they want to make you feel like you belong there. So you live in a real home, in a regular home, where you actually can cook food like you would at home. You meet real people, not concierge service at the hotel. You actually meet people that live in this city. And that lets them also extend the kinds of services that they're doing. So they can offer much more than just accommodation. And I can actually, I'm gonna skip forward to a brand video that they have done. It might be that we won't get the sound here in the room, but I think it's gonna work fine anyway. Let me just see where that went. Here we go. So this is the video that they did for their rebranding, and it's actually just music in this video, so you're not missing out on too much information. But so this is when they created this Belong Anywhere claim, and they started thinking about what does that actually mean for a brand like this. And when they started creating this symbol, they're also trying to start from this Belong Anywhere claim. Something that anyone can draw, but also that could be a combination of the different values that they have. So it could be a heart, we're gonna see when we move into this, could be people, places, love, and of course an A for Airbnb. So, and as I wrote in the video, wherever you see it, you know that you can belong. So this comes back again to the trust that we're talking about. This is what they are trying to build with Airbnb. That when we see this, we can trust that this is going to be something else than just a normal hotel experience. And this has let them also expand to much more broader types of services. So I don't know if you know this, but you can actually order tour guides at Airbnb.com. And now during Corona, you can actually have home away from home tour guides, so to speak. So if you go online there, you can order a drink session with a bunch of trans people in Buenos Aires, for instance, which is definitely something we're going to do on our next after work. Or you can have a chef that tells you about how to cook Spanish food, for instance. And all of these experiences gets back to that claim of belonging anywhere. So any questions at this point, or anything you want to bring up? All right, awesome. When do we have the hard stop on time? We just keep going. All right, so I wanted to show you a case, or two cases actually. So first one is Steven. Anyone use Steven here? So it's a cost splitting app. So if you go to a restaurant with your friend, so let's say that you and me go for a beer, and you take the first round and pay for that, and I say I'll take the second round, but then I have to run, and I say I'll send you money afterwards. I forget about it because I'm so forgetful. You have to decide, should I remind him of this? Like, Steven, take care of all of that for us. And these are the founders who came to us with this idea. And one of the first things that we discussed, like, does the world need another cost splitting app? There are really a lot of them already. There are very big competitors. So Splitter is one version of it. And then they have developed a lot of features where you can add expenses, or you can export it as an Excel sheet and keep track of all the travel costs, for instance, for a trip to Tokyo. So this is also when we started to think again, like, okay, so why? What is Steven's why? And this actually wasn't even named Steven at this point. And the discussions that, and this is not just work that came from our side, Steven did a lot of work and thinking on their own as well, so it is a collaboration. But what we landed on in conversations all the time is that as soon as you introduce money into relationship, you create some kind of friction in it. So again, with this beer that I forgot to buy back to you, and then I forget to swish you the money afterwards, and you have to decide, am I that kind of guy that reminds Tobias of 45 kroner, or should I just let it go? But then it happens over and over again, and you get really irritated about me. I feel very guilty that I always forget about it because I'm just a sloppy person. And that becomes some kind of friction. And this could be with your friends, or it could be with your loved one, where, let's say, my girlfriend is always buying the groceries. And it's mostly because I forget to do it all the time. And then she's paying more money than I am because we don't have a shared economy and so forth. So you can see, like, as soon as you introduce money, even these small sums, there becomes some kind of friction, and it can actually ruin relationships. So this is what we're going to try to solve. And that's when the idea of a name came up, a person's name, where we actually could make it feel like when we go for this beer that we have a third person sitting there, and he's the bottom-up guy that turns around the receipt and calculates what everyone is going to pay. And it's this person that reminds me, so you don't have to. And you maybe even don't know that I forgot about it because this person is taking care of it. So that's when the ideas started to come, like maybe we should have some kind of this person's name for it. And of course, even Steven, we thought that was great because we all love word puns. But it also has a lot of legs where you can play around with the copywriting for it. So, okay, we started to have the why. We have a name which we think really has some kind of story behind it. It goes back to the why that we have. Starting to look at the color scheme for it. We knew we had a masculine name, so we didn't want a traditional masculine colors, but actually borrowing much more from lifestyle and that kind of world instead. And here, as I said, we have product designers on most studios as well. And this becomes super important to actually have product designers involved when creating the brand, because they can make sure that you have call to action colors in your color scheme, for instance. We have a lot of companies that come to us that have ordered a color scheme from another agency where they don't have product designers, and suddenly they realize when they're building the product that, okay, everything is just blue now, or something like that. We actually need to redo this a little bit. So the brand is starting to take form. And here is the logo that we have for it, this coin that we split in half. And again, getting product designers involved in this is super important, because then they can point out that this logo needs to really work on very small pixel sizes, or it should lend itself to being animated. Because then we can put that on loading screens or success screens when you have made a payment, for instance. And it should also be able to be used as some kind of pattern in the design, which I will show you soon. Also picking out, so what type of photos do we have for this brand? And again, borrowing much more from lifestyle, it should be about relationships. It shouldn't feel like yet another fintech app. So going with much more like Instagram-ish feeling to it almost. And also, what kind of motifs do we have for it? Focus on what people are doing while they're using Steven. Not on fintech, not on piles of money or anything like that. And here, getting into the design, you can see where it starts to take shape. And these brand patterns that are pulled out from the logo as well, it becomes a way to cut out photos, for instance, or the most important call to action buttons, which you can see just a little bit down there in the corner. And the goal of this is really that we want to be able to do this and cover the logo, and you would still be able to recognize the brand. You will still feel like you're in this world. And then, of course, we continue to create a lot of content for them and create also these sort of toolboxes for it, so they very easily can continue to make their own content. And even when we think about the future, so it could be in the future they want to create a credit card, for instance. If you're a couple, maybe you want 2 credit cards connected to your Steven app. So again, going back to a credit card about relationships. So what would that look? And we're thinking about stuff like, you remember those hearts that you broke off in the middle and then you gave one to your best friend or your girlfriend and you kept the other one in the necklace? Anyone? Yeah? All right, so it's not just me. So we're thinking maybe we can do that for credit cards. They actually get credit cards together and then you break them apart, and that can become sort of like a step in the relationship that you take. Or if it's for your friends, you can have lenticular design or lenticular printing, which is this, maybe you've seen on gas station, if you look at lighters and you see different pictures depending on how you put it. Or maybe on rulers, you have seen it there, almost like an animation. You can put that on credit cards. So the users could upload their video of a great moment they had with their friends, and we pick out 3 pictures from that. You can go around, have sort of an analog video on your credit card. And all of these things come together. So this is when they did a relaunch of the brand, and we got in a review a really good quote where it says that Steven has already saved tons of friendships by removing the awkwardness around debts between friends, and will continue the quest to help friends stay friends, which we of course are very proud of, that this actually gets through to the user if you're consistent with creating your why and communicating that through each and every channel. All right, I'm going to have another sip of water. Any thoughts or questions around what we've talked about now? I don't know if you pick up questions from the online stuff as well, but if there are any way of sending questions there, feel free to do that as well. Go ahead.
So when you know the why, how do you most efficiently communicate?
So going back again to like the first slide we have, what is a brand really? I would say first thing, if you can afford it, get some help in creating a good visual identity for it. And then having a person that's sort of the brand hero at the company, someone that actually can protect the brand and actually raise that voice that this is not in line with the brand, this is not what we do. And then, of course, if you can have a founder that really lives up for the brand, having that person talking about it over and over and over again. You can actually see that if you go back to like in the beginnings of Spotify, and Daniel Ek, when he did interviews, he was much more talking about technology and all that kind of stuff. And then look, like half a year later, he's only talking about his love for music and how important that is. And you can really see that he has some training along the way to actually realize this. But if you can get that PR aspect of it as well, that becomes a great tool for you. I don't know if that was a perfect answer to the question, how do you communicate the brand, because there are so many different stuff involved in it. But I would say that's a good place to start. Yes, go ahead.
Do you work with engagement? I mean, when you have the product ready and the company you sell the product to, or the design, do you keep working with them? I mean, a business is something that just keeps going. So do you work with the engagement for the audience?
Yeah, so just repeating the question, do we keep working with stuff like engagement after we've created the brand? We prefer to do it. It's not always possible. Some of the companies we work with are very limited on budget because they're startups. So then it's sort of a one-off project. But if we can, we try to continue to work with them as well, working with engagement, working with campaigns or ads or content that we create as well. And it's, of course, the best thing if you can also work iteratively on that part. All right, I'm thinking about, so we have a stop in 13 minutes, I think. Thinking about if we should do maybe one last case that I can go through super quick, where you can see all the iterative steps and you can actually get a feel for the process around it. How does that sound? Awesome. So this is InnoCaption, and what I'm going to show you now is not the design we've made. I forgot to say that during the last talk I did, and people were very confused because it didn't look very great. So this is actually a logo that they bought from 99designs.com. And this is the website that they had. So they are a company where they have these transcribers that can sit in the middle of phone calls. So even if you're hard of hearing or if you're deaf, you can still make phone calls. Because surprisingly, a lot of people really need to keep making phone calls in this world. It's not only chat services and stuff like that. So if you need to call in your work, or you need to call the IRS, for instance, they can help you with that. Sort of a business to consumer, business to government service, because the American government pays for this. You can get this as a prescription from your doctor. And these are some of the great pieces of content that they've created before this. If you look at the competitors as well, it really looks like if you need to buy this product, then you are old and you are sick and you need a crutch, so to speak, for your ears. And this is sort of the process that we have. And I'm going to keep a very rapid pace on these slides so you can see the actual process of it. So first thing, we had the opportunity to actually talk to existing customers. We could do interviews with them, starting to create sort of these personas for the brand. So you recognize we did a lot of these different positioning charts with them. Also doing this brand spectrum, where we actually did for all of their competitors as well, to see where we could fit that in. With tone of voice, we usually start with interviewing the stakeholders at the company. And then we get a lot of these different words that we have noted down. But of course, if you are trying to say everything, then you're really saying nothing. So we need to scale this down and get it down to like 2 or 3 words that sort of can encapsulate what we want to be. And these were the ones that we picked out as the most important. So easy. We make a phone call as easy as making a phone call. And this is one of the absolute most important. We're a tool. We're not a crutch. You're not using this because you're sick. You're using this because you want to enable a full life. And we're not this. We actually, this is a video. Might be very loud sound, so I'm just giving you a little heads up there. And of course, you can't hear the sound here in the audience, but for some companies, we even create these kind of manifest videos just to get all of the stakeholders aligned on what are we trying to do. So this is 1 week in, sort of, in the brand process. So for the next session we have with the client, we've started to visualize these brand foundations through mood boards. So still nothing here we have designed, just picking inspirations from all over. So easy, what do we mean by easy? What are some other services that conveys this? Or tool, why do we see Slack as a tool and other chat services we're not? Or enable, how do we want to portray that? Also started to look at the color direction. We usually put all of these competitors out on these slides because then we can really fast see where are some color spaces that are free. And from these, we're starting to build out direction mood boards. So if we're going with this, more techy, contrasty, direct colors, could land up in a space like this. If we go with this one, more soft, friendly, or if we go with the direction C, more humanistic, warm colors. So this is sort of 2 weeks into the process now. For a third session that we had with the clients, they have chosen a color direction that they want to go. And we started to create a color palette for that. So again, making sure that we have product designers involved in it. Also create a hierarchy of the colors, how much you can use of everyone. Typography, starting to create that and put that together. As you can see, I'm going to pick up the speed a lot here. Photo style, much more work efficiency related, could be from one of these work magazines, for instance. And we're starting to create some kind of visual world for it. So the logo, this was the 99 Designs that they used. So we started to look what are the different kind of iconography that we can use. So for instance, sight and sound could maybe be something like this. Or sound going from nothing to something. Maybe it could be something like that, and that could become part of the eye, so to speak. Or maybe it's about people and communication between them, something like that, or sound plus text plus conversation, maybe something like that. Also here, we're starting to pick out maybe if we blow up the logo a lot, that could become sort of part of a brand pattern that we could use. Or maybe we could cut photos like this or put it on photos like visual style. And we're exploring what would it look like as app icons, of course, because it's an app. So week 4, and now you can see that we're started iterating around here. We decided to go with a little bit more punch. With that also changed the color palette a little bit. So the logo is starting to take form, but instead of the rounded corners we're trying out a more square one in the middle. Different versions, iterations of that. Starting to iterate also on the brand pattern. Could maybe that be the brand pattern we're going to go for? It could be used as well to cut out photos like this in a more artistic way. We're starting to find stuff like photo style and icon library, putting out the different kind of colors that we have there. And then really starting to summarize it into different sketches so you get the feeling for it. We're in week 5, and as you can see, the iterations are becoming less and less bold. Here we have really nailed down the logo for what it's going to be. We've figured out that graphical elements could also be used a little like this, where we can remove some parts and it becomes a much more dynamic pattern for it. That also can be used on photos like that. Or that we can create wall art and stuff like that with the logo and use it much more artistically. Or we can cut out the video in the same way if we want to do a tutorial in the app, for instance. And here, the brand has more or less
taken shape, and we're starting to design out different assets for them that they can use. So that was sort of, I think, 85 slides in 6 minutes. But I've used this a whole lot in when I wanted to show, like, what does the process usually look like? What kind of tools do we use, and how are we thinking when we're working iteratively around it? So I wanted to end on a slide I'm going to put up here. So we talked about how you want to create this gut feeling of a product or service or an organization. There is this CEO of a company called Zappos, and he thinks a lot about this, and he thinks a lot about company culture and how that can become part of your brand. And he usually describes brands as these fractal pieces of art. And these work sort of like snowflakes. Like if you zoom in, the same pattern is going to come back again and again and again. And it doesn't matter how far you zoom in, it's always the same pattern again and again. And that's how we is thinking of brand, that no matter how far you've zoomed in, if it's on the individual employee, if it is what our toilets look like in the office, or if you go out and look at the whole entire brand, it should tell the same story. It should have the same pattern, so to speak. So I guess in the end, I wanted to end on this as a reminder that this is what we're trying to create when we're starting with this why, getting our brand story, getting all our colors, elements, anything, and then hopefully creating something that can change the world. So thank you so much for listening today. I'm going to stick around if you have any questions or anything. I also have my colleague Casper here that also can answer any questions that you might have. But should we call it quits for the web? Perfect. Thank you so much for listening at home as well. And we're signing out. All right, thanks. Yeah.
So what are the 3 most common pitfalls when companies try to do their own branding?
I can actually, we have officially ended, so if you have places to go or anything, feel free to do that. I can show you some slides that I had as a backup if you want to. Let's see. So I actually have the exact question. So what are the 3 pitfalls? So one of them is sort of using words like this: innovative, disrupting, care about the customer, great culture, like anything that you wouldn't say that we're actually going to have a really bad culture at our company. That's going to be our brand. Then it's very, very hard to be distinct and unique in this. Also, I don't know if vision porn is a wholesome way to describe this, but sort of, have you seen the Facebook commercial that they did? Facebook is like a chair. You should Google this afterwards. It's the weirdest piece of content I've seen ever. It's where they're trying to create sort of a bigger vision narrative around Facebook, just like Airbnb did with Belong Anywhere. But it's just incomprehensible, and they're trying to say that Facebook is like a chair. It could be anything for everyone, and everyone sits on it, and it also brings people together somehow. And like, they're just a copywriter that went completely nuts writing this. But I think so that is also one pitfall that you can fall down in, like trying to overcomplicate and overthink that kind of vision. And also not delivering on the promises that you make, which is one of the hardest one to actually solve, because that means that you actually have to be as great as you say. But I would say those are the top main pitfalls. The example I had was, I don't know if you've seen Bing's, the search engine Bing's, their video where they talk about how much better they are than Google. That did not went well. Yeah, so hopefully that answers your question. I think we're going to hang around there and grab a coffee. I have a really dry throat as well, so I think we're going to sign off so people also can go back to work and all of that, but I'm going to stick around. So let's have some coffee. Oh.